active. They're always in on everybody, kind of similar to the Yankees, just out west. But the Dodgers, they go out and they spend when they want to spend, and they spend a lot. Well, we could put it that way. This year, they really only made one move that shows a lot of spending, but they got some pitching depth in Andrew Heaney, Tyler Anderson, and they signed Dellin Betances to a minor league contract just a few days ago. They brought in an outfield depth piece in Kevin Pillar. They also acquired Craig Kimbrell from the Chicago White Sox just before spring training wrapped up. And the big one where they went for top dollar, they got first baseman, my opinion, the best first baseman in baseball. They pried him away from Atlanta, Freddie Freeman. And that alone just makes this lineup just absolutely ridiculous. And it'll just be extremely fun to watch what goes on in Los Angeles. They're going to be very good once again. I think they have been very good for the last 5 to 6 years. It's very rare that you see a team be this good every single year. Now, they did lose some bullpen depth, and some of these names may come back to hurt the Dodgers, depending on how Craig Kimbrell really does. Joe Kelly, they lost Corey Knebel. And the big one, their closer, he's been their closer for quite some time now, Kenley Jansen. He, as we said before, he went to Atlanta, but hopefully Craig Kimbrell can find himself and be the same relief pitcher that he once was, and maybe make that Jansen loss less glaring. Now, they did lose some more big names. They lost Pujols. He was just really kind of a platoon option. They lost Corey Seager and Max Scherzer, one of the best shortstops in baseball and a top 3 pitcher in baseball. But this rotation is good enough to where they will rebound from this loss of Max Scherzer. This rotation is definitely good enough, and they will show you that. Seager, they went out and they acquired Trey Turner with Max Scherzer at the deadline, so you knew something was going to happen. I personally am taking Trey Turner over Corey Seager every single day of the year, but Corey Seager, very good bat to have in the lineup. He's okay defensively, but he decided to go to Texas. Nevertheless, his team is still going to be really good without either of them. And I keep saying that this team is just going to be fun to watch, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's definitely a most fun in my opinion, most fun team to watch in the league. No lineup, as we talked about, best lineup in the league, easy. Blue Jays is very good. This one is way better, in my opinion, possibly the best ever. The weakness of this team, though, is the back end of the rotation. With Bauer still out, who knows if he's going to even play this year. Tony Gonsolin is a very good starter, but if you compare it to some other top rotation in the league, having Gonsolin, Andrew Heaney at the end of it isn't as good. Bullpen depth is incredible, probably a top 5 bullpen league, despite losing Jansen, Kimbrell, Trinan, Daniel Hudson, Alex Faccia, one of the most underrated relievers in the league. I think he can start for some teams. So we can definitely say it's going to be a fun year in LA.
Absolutely, Andrew. Absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun. I keep saying that. It is what it is. It's going to be fun. Trust me on that. Now, we're going to move over a little further down south in California, and that is going to be with the San Diego Padres. Now, the Padres, they didn't do as much as they thought they were going to do. AJ Preller usually very active on the market, whether it be for trades or for free agency, but nevertheless, they still made some very solid moves to improve this team. They got some good pitching depth in Nick Martinez, and they had a very good starting pitcher in Sean Manaea, who in his first start as a Padre threw 7 no-hit innings. Very encouraging signs there, and that's just a very good pitcher to add to a rotation with Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove. I could keep naming names. I'm not going to, but their rotation is significantly deeper with Manaea. Definitely a very good pitcher to have. They locked down a little bit of their bullpen. They got one of the better closers, left-handed pitcher Taylor Rogers. Pretty underrated pitcher in my opinion. He's always been really good for the Twins. I could see him having some even more success with the Padres, especially on a contending team like the Padres. They got some catching depth in Jorge Alfaro. They got him from Miami. And one of their bigger moves, they got a designated hitter. First time in National League history. They went out and got the Yankees' former first baseman designated hitter in Luke Voit. He will add a lot of thump to that lineup, as he did for the Yankees. Get some very fair playing time out in San Diego. So good for Luke Voit, good for the Padres. Now they did lose a decent amount of pitching and a little bit of depth, you could say, in the lineup, but primarily bullpen loss. That's what the key is here. They lost Mark Melancon. He led the league in saves last year. They lost Emilio Pagan, Keona Kella, Matt Strom, and Chris Paddock. Those are all names that were pretty good for the Padres at some time, but they decided to move on, and their bullpen may have gotten a little worse, but adding Taylor Rogers definitely helps that out a little bit. They also lost backup catcher Victor Caratini, not a huge loss. He just he didn't like, but Yu Darvish liked throwing to him. That was the whole reason why he was sent over to San Diego from Chicago, now with Milwaukee. They did lose second baseman Adam Frazier. They traded him to Seattle, but to me, that is also not a huge loss because when they got him, he was not the same player that he was with the Pirates as he was with the Padres. So maybe a little better fortunes up in Seattle, but not a huge loss for the Padres. They can definitely work around that. Now, as I said, they already added to a deep rotation. The bullpen subtractions, it will show. It will show, but they still have solid options to choose from out there to close games. The big problem here, though, for the Padres, and this is really big for the league too, Fernando Tatis, he will be out for at least 2 to 3 months after getting into a motorcycle accident. It's a huge loss for the Padres and a huge loss for Major League Baseball, as he is one of the faces of Major League Baseball. But he is a spark for the Padres. He gets that offense going. The defense is a little shaky. It's questionable, but he's very lively, and hopefully he comes back soon and the Padres can rebound and continue to make a push in the National League West, which I believe that they will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Padres rotation, very interesting to me. They obviously added Minaya, which is a very good pickup because he's very consistent. He does have some bad peripherals. I think this rotation could either be top 5 or it can be a bottom 10, maybe bottom 12 in the league. Clevenger coming off Tommy John surgery. Don't know how he's going to pitch this year. Snell really had a 2-sided season. Same with Darvish. Snell had very bad start. Darvish had a very good start, very bad end to the year. Musgrove only had 1 good year, so we don't know how good he's going to be after last year. I just think this team needs to just tread water a little bit before Tatis comes back, stay close to the Dodgers and Giants. And I think the Luke Voit trade is huge. I think that's going to prove to be one of the best moves of the offseason.
I have to agree with that, Andrew. I really like that move. I'm going to miss Luke as a Yankee fan, but there just wasn't enough room here in New York for him. But all the best out in San Diego. I think he's really going to succeed out there. Once again, we're going to stay in California. We're going to move up north, though, and we're going to go to the reigning NL West champions, San Francisco Giants. Now, the Giants, they lost some big pieces to their success in the franchise's best season since moving to San Francisco. They lost one of their franchise icons in Buster Posey. He heads to retirement. They lost Chris Bryant, a bat they got at the deadline who was pretty good for them down the stretch. He went to Colorado. Lost Donovan Solano, lost Johnny Cueto, and they lost their ace, Kevin Gausman. He goes to Toronto. Those are 3 big names in Gausman, Bryant, and Posey that this team lost, but they did fill those spots in the best ways that they could. They added a lot of pitching depth in Matt Boyd, Carlos Martinez, Alex Cobb, and the big one in Carlos Rodon. Those are all 3 or 4 really good options to have behind Logan Webb and the rest of the Giants staff. You can even put Martinez in the bullpen and he'll be pretty solid out there for you. So not too upset with the Giants moves. I think they were pretty good. I think they could have been a little better, but pretty solid offseason. They also went out and got a left-handed bat in Jock Peterson. Hopefully he will provide the spark that he did for Atlanta, but we'll just have to wait and see. I think the Giants will still be pretty good this year. They have a lot of big bats in their lineup that they can add or that they could bounce off of. They added the solid arms, as I said, to add behind Logan Webb. But this team, they won't be as good as they were last year. However, I do think they will be good enough to sneak into the playoffs, maybe as a 5 or a 6 seed. They just won't be as good as they were last year.
See, I don't believe that the Giants were a fluke. I think that they were a very good team last year. They're a surprise, but they're going to be pretty much just as good this year. Not as in terms of wins, but I think they'll be very similar in terms of win total. They have one of the deepest rotation in the league. You got two aces, Logan Webb, Carlos Giron leading it, and then they got legit starters who could legit be number twos on a lot of teams. Discofani, Alex Wood, Alex Cobb. Also added Carlos Martinez, Jacob Junis. The subtractions do suck for this team. Buster Posey obviously had a great year, but they do have Joey Bart, one of the top prospects in the league, as a replacement for him. And Chris Bryant, they did replace line production a little bit with Jock Peterson. Obviously, it's not a very good trade-off. But I think this Giants team, very complete, top to bottom. They're still going to be very good in 2022.
It definitely will be very good. I'll give them that. They just won't be as good as they were last year because they were the best team in baseball. Well, Dodgers, record-wise, the Giants were the best team in baseball. It's not going to be the case this year, but they still will be a very competitive ball club. Now, we're going to go to one of probably the most confusing franchises to figure out as of late, and that's the Colorado Rockies. I'm just going to start right now. I don't know what the hell is going on over in Colorado, Andrew. I could not tell you what is going on over there. Don't really know what the plan is. You let Trevor Story go instead of trading him for established prospects. You decide to offer him the qualifying offer and bank on a draft pick. That's number one. You also let Nolan Arenado go a couple off seasons ago, while giving the Cardinals $50 million to pay his contract. Another questionable move. But what made it more questionable is that you bring in Chris Bryant on a monster contract. I really don't know what to say in this situation. You let John Gray go too, but you just, why are you bringing in Chris Bryant? What are you doing? You brought in Alex Colome, a pretty solid bullpen arm. They brought in Jose Iglesias, good defensive shortstop. He was pretty good offensively too with Baltimore in 2020. And you brought in Randall Grichuk as well. You traded Raimel Tapia for him, but Grichuk has a very good stick. He's a pretty solid defender. Tapia, left-handed bat, good contact guy, another okay defender. As I said, you lost John Gray and Trevor Story. I'm just still very confused as to why Chris Bryant is on this team. Not Chris Bryant's fault. They threw him a good contract, and if I were Chris Bryant, yeah, I'd probably accept it too. I already have an MVP and a World Series ring. Could put up some really good offensive years with the Rockies. But if I'm the Rockies, why would I even think about doing that? This team is just not going to be that good, and we'll just have to wait and see what their plan is because it doesn't make sense right now.
Yeah, I'm completely on your side. I don't really know what they're doing. Chris Bryant signing didn't really make a lot of sense. And especially when you trade Nolan Arenado, you let Trevor Story go. And this team is not really much exciting. Rotation isn't very good. Antonio Senzatella, German Marquez topping it. When your ace has over a 4.4 ERA and 180 innings, that's definitely not a great sign. But they do have some trade candidates in CJ Cron, and as I just mentioned, German Marquez. I do think that they will be traded for some prospects if the Rockies are smart enough to trade them.
Yeah, we'll see. They were reluctant to trade one of their best players for a good haul of prospects. So don't really know what to expect out of the Rockies. Just expect that it's not going to be a very good season for them, but hey, maybe they'll surprise everybody. Who knows? Now, the last team for our National League preview is going to be the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, I kind of like what the Diamondbacks did here. They know they're not going to be good. Everyone knows that they're not going to be good. They weren't good last year. They were one of the worst teams in baseball last year. But some of these moves are so subtle that they could pay big dividends for this team at the trade deadline. They brought in Keona Kela, they brought in Ian Kennedy, and they brought in Mark Melancon. Those are three very solid bullpen arms. When healthy and when performing, can return to you a solid haul for a trade, because those are three arms that teams that are in competitive scenarios, those are three arms that they will look out for to lock down those tense games that will either bring you up in the standings or bring you to the playoffs or even win games for you in the playoffs. So sneaky moves there by the Diamondbacks. I really like that. They also brought in Jordan Luplow, another guy that is very flippable, very good against left-handed pitching. Another guy that you can just, hey, he does well. You could trade him. If he does well enough, you could trade him for a decent package. If he does okay, you could still trade him and make the most out of the package because you know what you're going to get out of him. I don't like this move as much as I like the bullpen moves, but Luplow, solid option to have out there for a rebuilding team. But the best move, in my opinion, they extended Ketel Marte. There had been a lot of rumors that he was going to be on his way out. That didn't happen. They extended him 5 years, $70 million. I think that definitely sold themselves short a little bit. I really like Ketel Marte. He can play all around the field and even play in the infield as well. Very good hitter, switch hitter, can hit for contact, can even hit for power as well. Very fun player to watch out in Arizona, but he gets a nice contract extension. The only subtraction for this team was an outfield piece in Cole Calhoun, good solid left-handed power bat to have. He goes to Texas. Not a huge subtraction, but Arizona, like I said, they're another team in a rebuild. Those solid bullpen pieces, it should be interesting to see how they do. And maybe even one of them, for example, like Melanson, he could play really well like he did last year, but this time not on a competitor, gets flipped for somebody, and then that team goes on a magical run, and the Diamondbacks are left with some pieces to work with towards the future. It's kind of got a win-win deal written on it, but that's a wait and see. That's many months away. But still don't really expect the Diamondbacks to be too good, but not a bad offseason.
Yeah, I think it's good because they addressed their biggest weakness last year, which was their bullpen. Pretty much every time they came into the game, runs were going to be scored for their team. So it's nice they added Keela, Kennedy, Melanson. And the offense is not as bad as the record of the team looks, but I don't really think it's going to matter when your rotation is filled with Mad Bum, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Luke Weaver. That's not a rotation that's really going to have these top of the line bullpen guys closing games. So it's going to be a pretty rough year for the D-backs. Also, I don't really know why Ketel Marte would want to stay on a discount, 5 years, $70 million, to stay on this team when they're probably not going to be good for at least a few years. So that was just a question.
Yeah, maybe he's just comfortable out there in Arizona. It's a pretty nice place to live. So maybe that was the reasoning. I kind of agree with you there, Andrew. At his age, wouldn't you want to go to a contender? Not saying that he's old, but he's at a good age where he could go to a contender and then make even more money because he's that good. So I don't know. Whatever, it's what he wanted to do. Diamondbacks lucked out there, as you said, and as I said, got him at a discount. So, well, that's going to wrap up what we have to talk about for each team. We're going to give our last predictions here for the NL West. I will kick it off. I have the Dodgers. They're going to take home the NL West crown at 104-58, followed by the Padres at 92-70. Have the Giants in third at 90-72. The Rockies in fourth at 73-89. And rounding out the NL West, I have the Diamondbacks at 60-102.
I have the Dodgers at 105-57, the Giants at 96-66, the Padres at 94-68, the Rockies at 71-91, and the D-backs at 59-103.
Pretty similar predictions there. I liked all of your picks there, Andrew. I think pretty much for the most part we're on the same page, but being on the same page isn't it's a good thing for this. And that's not a good or a bad thing, but it should be an exciting year in the National League. But we're going to move on now to our awards predictions. One of the